Hello, my name is Elizabeth. I had posted a ShiftPod 2 review when I first opened it last summer before Burning Man 2018. If you're interested in seeing what the ShiftPod 2 looks like, that video is also on my channel. You're welcome to view that and then view this if you'd like to have some more information. This video is going to be about my partner and I's experience with the ShiftPod 2 at Burning Man last year. So when we first purchased the the ShiftPod for Burning Man, we had two options for financing. So either you could buy it outright, and I think it was somewhere around $1,200, or you could finance it. And we've been financing it over time, and we've been paying about $125 a month since we purchased it. So that actually really helped us out a lot because it was easier to pay over time instead of just shelling out all the money for it. So it is an expensive purchase if it's something that you want to get. We justified this because, the two of us are paying for it, so it's more like 65 between the two of us. In addition, it's something that we could use as a pop-up shelter if we decided to, live out of it for a short period of time, or if we wanted to take it to other events. It's a very easy thing to set up, and it's pretty effective. So when we first got to Burning Man, it was a little bit windy, but it wasn't so bad, and we didn't have a lot of trouble setting it up to begin with. I recommend putting a tarp down first and staking it into the ground. The ShiftPod comes with, I think, 6 or 8 of the long, foot-long stakes, but we also went ahead and purchased extra stakes from, just a store, a camping store. I think we got 6 or 8 of those as well that were foot-long, just in case we needed extras, and we actually did need the extras, so I recommend getting extra stakes. We didn't have any issues with them pulling up from the ground except one time when we strapped one of the blast shield ropes to the ground. Sometimes the wind would be so heavy on that one side of the ShiftPod that it would pop the stake out of the ground, and we kept putting it back in and trying to loosen it and tighten it and put it in different positions, and it eventually actually ripped the blast shield. So we did have one part of the blast shield that broke and was kind of wavering around. When you set the ShiftPod up, I recommend laying a tarp out first, staking it down, setting up the tent itself and popping the walls out, and then putting the ground on. Once you put the ground on, you can then put the middle pole that helps to support the top up so that it doesn't pop down while you're using it. You put that in next, and then you can start putting your belongings inside it. We noticed when we zipped up the bottom onto the tent that there was a small rip in the fabric between the tent itself and the ground. So even though these ShiftPods look very, very sturdy, it is important to note that if you're not careful with it, you can rip the fabric, and if you don't stake it down properly, the blast shield is also easy to rip if the wind is very heavy. When we put the blast shield on, it was very windy and very difficult for the two of us to put on by ourselves, so we struggled a lot and it was kind of frustrating. I recommend having at least 3 or 4 people there to help if it's windy. Otherwise, just wait until the wind dies down and it'll be a lot easier on you, trust me. Something that we did to keep this ShiftPod standing up sturdy is instead of staking the ShiftPod down itself, we attached ropes that came with the kit to the handles on the outside of the walls. We attached it there and then staked it into the ground. This prevented the walls from popping in because that started to happen before we had put the walls staked into the ground. The walls would just pop in anytime the wind blew really hard, so we had to keep punching it back out, and then we staked it down. Sometimes in very heavy winds that will still happen, and you'll just have to go back out and stake it down because the wind is variable. Sometimes you get those big dust storms, and even if it is a very sturdy structure, it's possible that it'll pop out. So if you're concerned about that, maybe go ahead and get some stronger rebar or really strong long stakes to put into the ground to prevent those things from popping up. Which, in addition, it's really important to bring a mallet or a hammer or both, depending on the type of stakes that you have. The ShiftPod did, in fact, keep a bit of the heat out. I would say that it was cooler in the ShiftPod than a traditional tent would be. It was cooler inside than outside, but I don't know specifically. I did not have a temperature gauge with me or anything, but you could tell that it was a little bit more comfortable in there. It was mostly 80 degrees when we were there last year. We were fortunate it wasn't the hottest year, so it was pretty hot outside. And then when you went inside, you got this really tall dome that gives you enough space to stand up in. So there's definitely like air. And one really cool feature is for both of the both the doors and then the side windows, you can unzip them so there's just a screen. So you can create a cross breeze, which is really helpful on the days that you just want to like lay down for a bit and take a nap or something. It really does help to cool off the space. I will say that the blast shield didn't do anything to keep heat out. It just kind of, I think it's good to have as like a rain fly, basically. We didn't experience any rain there last year, but it doesn't help to keep the heat out. In the Shift Pod 2, on one side, near the bottom, there are these ports that you can stick hoses for an air conditioning vent through if you are somebody who chooses to bring an air conditioning unit and a generator. We tried this because we weren't sure, how our first year was going to go, so we thought maybe bringing a small air conditioning unit and a generator would, be beneficial if there's a day where, like, one of us was overheating or we just really, really needed to escape the heat. Unfortunately, we had some, like, mechanical errors with it and could not get the air conditioning to do much more than just be a fan. It was mostly a fan for us. Although I will say that the ports are really nice, the way that they have them set up. They're big enough so you can fit pretty much any size hose through it, and then they have these little drawstring pouches on it that you can tighten so that the dust does not come in. So that worked out really well for us, except, our air conditioning and generator system didn't really work that well. In addition, if you're going to bring a generator for something like that, try to have some sort of little structure like a 3-walled box to put around the generator and face the open side away from other camps. Even though we had placed our generator like far away from our tent and we were in open camping and we placed it in like another tent like far, far away, people that were nearby us, which wasn't many because we were out in open camping, people were very spaced out, people still, asked us if we could turn it off because it was pretty loud, but, we tried our best to keep it quiet and, we also didn't expect people to just show up and set up their tents near our generator, so, go figure. So yeah, that's really good advice. Just make sure that you're, like, conscious of other people's, the sound that you're making, and other people's space. Something else to be aware of is that it is a really heavy object. So you need 2 people to carry it. It's very long. It's like 6 feet long, and I believe it's about 57 pounds. So when you actually are transporting it around, it's pretty heavy and it's very long. We used a trailer for all of our belongings, plus a friend's belongings, so we were able to fit everything just fine. But a Shift Pod 2 is not going to fit in like a small car. It's not going to fit in like a sedan. And it's not likely to fit well on top of a car either unless you have a rack specifically for heavy equipment. So I recommend bringing a trailer or a truck or something that can carry it. It's not going to be something that's easy to put on an airplane if you plan on like moving to another country or bringing it to a festival in another country. And I also think it's important to notice that although it is a very effective shelter for this purpose, but also for other purposes, it's not something that's unique. And at Burning Man, a lot of people like to build their own shade structures, and it's very creative. Like, a lot of people have come up with these insane ideas to build, these colorful, big, effective, shady domes. And I will say that many of the people we encountered at Burning Man had camps that were more effective at keeping the heat out than the Shift Pod itself. In addition, the Shift Pod really is, it's a little pod. You're not going to really have the experience of feeling like you're in an open camp with other people. Like, of course, most people will keep their tents shut during the day and everything, but it does keep everything in a little pod. So it's, if you'd like to have more of like a social, welcoming camp atmosphere, I'd recommend building like a shade structure with chairs or something nearby so that you can kind of like interact with the people around you. And in addition to, it just not being something super unique, there was a time at Burning Man where I walked by an area that there were like 50 of them set up in a row. So it seemed like it, I don't know if like the Shift Pod people came in and like set up all of their tents and then people rented them out or something. I'm not really sure how it worked, but yeah, you definitely don't really get the experience of like coming off as like very creative or, sharing something new with the experience, if that makes sense. So if that's something that bothers you, like that's just something to be aware of. But, we did have a really comfortable, like, space to feel that we were, like, safe and enclosed. So it definitely gives you that, like, nice kind of womb effect. Like, you feel safe, all of your belongings are in one place. And we did string lights around ours and everything to make it easier for us to find. And we could tell it was ours because we had a pink blast shield, so it was very bright. So, yeah. So things to be aware of. Be careful with it because it can rip. It's very heavy. You need a couple people to transport it around or a trailer. it's effective at keeping some but not all heat out, stake it down effectively, and utilize the screens for a cross breeze if you need a little bit of time to cool off. So that's basically all the information I can give you guys about the ShiftPod 2. If I think of anything else, I can either redo this video or add more in the comments. If you guys have any more questions, go ahead and leave them for me, and I'll get back to you as soon as I can. Thank you so much, guys. Have a fun burn this year.